Hi everyone, this is Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. I'm going to do a cute little card today using the Lawn Fawn front and back bear. And I did it both ways, as a holiday card and a Valentine card, just so you could see how cute it is either way. I'm going to start off using 140-pound watercolor cold press paper from Canson, and using my Versafine permanent ink pad, I'm going to stamp that little bear from the For You Deer set from Lawn Fawn, and I'm just going to stamp the front of the bear. I'm actually going to stamp this 3 times, again on the watercolor paper. And I'm not using a positioner here just because it's just a quick little stamping, and it's stamped pretty clearly the first time out. So now I'm going to go ahead and start to color these in. I'm using my Tombow water-based markers, and I'm using a couple shades of brown and a pink, and that's the blender pen there, N00. I have an extra piece of paper there just to clean off my blender pen. And I'm starting off by applying a little bit of the blender fluid and then the pink. And then I'm going to go back with the blender and just blend that in. I find if I lay down the blender fluid first, I get a little better blending. It's not totally wet, but it just puts a little moisture on the paper to start with. So now I'm going to take the blender pen again and just go around where I'm going to be coloring, just again to get it a little bit moistened. It does make it easier for the blending process. And I'm kind of using like little circular motions to blend that in, just because I want it to look a little bit like fur. So I'm just kind of going in and again, just in small little circular motions, I'm going to blend down. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit darker brown here, and I'm just dotting that on. I don't want a lot of color, just little tiny dots just to kind of get the color in place. And again, with that circular motion, I'm blending that down. Adding a little bit of dark areas where I think it would be the darkest. And now adding the light and a touch of the dark and blending that around his ears there. And a little bit of the pink inside the ear. And I'm going to continue to do that same exact thing on the next one here. And I'll just show you again what I did, laying down the lighter color, going in with the darker one, blending that out. I decided to add a little bit more shading there around his little paws. And I'm going to blend that entirely out. Same thing, adding a little bit of pink in the ears there. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to take the black Jelly Roll pen, and I'm going to go over his eyes and the nose on each one of these, just to blacken it up a little bit. Just gives it a little bit more definition. And do be careful with that pen. I like to heat set it afterwards. I know it gets very wet, and I've smudged it before, so for safety I just give it a quick dry with my heat gun. So now I'm going to take the coordinating die that goes with that little bear, and I'm going to go ahead and put some washi tape down to hold it in place, and I'm going to set that aside for now. The next thing I want to show you is that I'm going to be using the jar and the lid from the How You Bean set, and I'm going to use one of the coordinating die sets. This is the one that does coordinate with the How You Bean set. And from there, I want to do the jar, the lid, and the label. And you'll see here, I'm die cutting it out of my white paper. I'm just using the watercolor paper because that was what was handy. I'm not going to be coloring on it or anything. And then I'm going to go ahead and from the shaker add-on How You Bean set, I'm going to be using those hearts. I'm just going to die cut quite a few of the hearts I only end up using, well, I use, I think, 2 on the front and 3 on the inside. So you need enough to do that at least. And now I'm going to take all of those things and run them through my my die cut machine at one time. And I'm here using the Spellbinders Platinum machine, which is really a great machine and will run through any paper. This is I'm using 140-pound watercolor paper, and it goes through easily. So I'm going to go ahead now and just die cut the rest of those pieces. And you can see here that I have the label, the lid to the jar, and then the jar itself. And now I've got all my little hearts cut, and I will run that through one more time just to get a few more of those. So you can see here that I've got all my little pieces. And now going back to that stamp set, the How You Bean stamp set, now I actually want to stamp the jar and the lid. And I'm going to be using the Nitpicky paper pack from Lawn Fawn. And I want this paper that looks a little bit like a stitch sweater. And then just a piece of red cardstock. Any red. This is just a scrap of red linen cardstock that I had in my stash. I'm going to place those on my Misti stamp positioner, and I'm going to pick those up. So basically my jar will be the color of the paper. And using my Versafine permanent black ink, I'm going to ink those up and stamp those. I've been seeing a lot of jars, these cute jars at all the craft stores that are all different colors now. You can paint your own, you can put vinyl on them. So I thought it would be cute to do the jar in a pattern paper. And so what I'm going to do here is, now that those are stamped, I'm going to actually just take them and cut them out with my scissors. And you'll see in a minute here what I'm going to do. And I do love to cut, and I didn't necessarily want to color in these, so I thought it'd be just as easy to go ahead and cut them. And like I said, I wanted that beautiful pattern paper on my jar. I just thought it would be so, cute and whimsical. So I'm just cutting around there, and you can see as I cut, I move my paper rather than the scissors. I find it a lot easier to cut around detail work if I move the paper. And just kind of shift it around as you turn the paper. It's easier to cut. So now you'll see what I'm going to do here is I still wanted that little white border. So that's why I cut out the jar and the lid. And I'm using my Nuvo adhesive here to put some glue on the back of that jar. And I'm going to go ahead and attach that. And again, what that's going to give me is that beautiful white border around the edges. So it's just a finishing touch. You do not need to do this step. If you just like the jar the way it is, go ahead with that. I just happen to want to finish it off with that little white edge. I'm going to do the same thing here with the lid to the jar. And I'm applying the adhesive again. I always apply it in little tiny dots. I don't know. I just find it, I have a little more control that way. And then that gives me a nice border on that as well. It makes it pop a little bit more. So now I have those two pieces. I'm going to take my outside in stitched scalloped circle, again from Lawn Fawn, and my 100-pound soft finish cardstock from Elisabeth Crafts. And this has a beautiful soft finish to it. And I'm going to go ahead and die cut that. And then going back again to that Nitpicky paper pad, I'm looking for the paper. It has kind of like a sweater, I don't know, just a light gray with a white diamond pattern in it. Reminds me a little bit of a sweatery pattern. And I'm going to just die cut a little bit of that circle. I would say maybe a third of the way, a quarter of the way, a third of the way up on that circle. And that's just going to give me a little area to set that jar on. But I thought it just looked a little too plain. So I'm taking my Hickory Smoke Distress ink, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of shading there. That, again, will just give a little definition there when I place the jar. It'll almost look like it's sitting on a tabletop. And there you can see that it gives it a little bit more definition. So now going back to the For You Dear set, I'm going to take the Happy Holidays stamp for the inside and To a Very Good Friend. I'm sorry, for the outside, and To a Very Good Friend for the inside. Now, I also have done this card with the Happy Heart Day as a Valentine card, which you would have seen in the beginning of the video, and you will see it again at the end. I'm stamping the label and using my Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink. I'm just going to go around that label. Now for the Valentine card, I did the exact same thing. I just thought I wanted you to see that it's really a great card for either. It just is cute and very, it's got a lot of hearts in the paper, and we're adding hearts, so I thought it also made a cute Valentine card. So now that I have that done around the edges, I'm going to go ahead and cut a second one of that same outside in stitch scallop circle to do my inside. Sometimes it's nice to finish off the insides of these cards. Just gives it a cute, finished look. And I'm just going to stamp that right in the center of the circle, To a Very Good Friend. And I'm going to clean that off. And now I'm going to take the large wreath die set from Lawn Fawn, and I just want the bow. And I'm going back to that red linen cardstock paper again. And I'm going to just die cut those pieces. I do like this bow because it has the little wraparound center, which is a lot easier to maneuver. So using the Jelly Roll pen in the white, I thought it would be cute to add a little bit of a white stitching around that bow. I'm just taking that and adding the stitching on the little wraparound and on the two sides of the bow. It's these little details that I find can make a card just stand out a little bit more and make it unique and your own that way. So I'm going to do the bottom part of the bow as well. And I just freehand it. I think it looks more homemade. I think the stitches look more random. I like that. So don't worry about it if they're not perfect. Just go right ahead and do it. It'll still give the idea, and the effect is really what you're going for. So I like to round off the bow a little bit before I try to put everything together. It just keeps it from folding and creasing on me and makes it easier to bend in those two side pieces. I am going to switch over to my Tombow Mono Adhesive because I think sometimes it's a little bit stronger. I'm still getting used to the Nuvo one. I'm sure it would be work just as well, but I'm going to take my little EK Success tweezer, but these work where when it pinches together, it holds something in place for you. I like to think of it as a little extra set of hands because when you release it, it pinches the paper together. And I'm just going to hold that in place for a second or two here. Then I'm going to add a little bit of glue and wrap that band around. And you see how easy that is to do. There's no extra little piece for the center part. And now you can see the cute little stitching that goes right around the center of the bow there. Now I'm adding a little bit of my adhesive along the back of the bow, and I'm going to get that right in place. And I just think this is the cutest little bow. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, leave it pinched in place there to dry. Now I'm going to make my card, and I want my card to be a square card, and it's going to be 4.5 by 4.5. So I'm cutting my paper the long way at 4.5, And then I'm going to cut it at 9 inches long and then a score at 4.5. Now, it didn't quite line up when I folded it, so I'm just trimming off a little tiny piece along the edge, and that's where the Tim Holtz paper trimmer is just so perfect. I actually will just trim off that little sliver of paper, which you can kind of see off to the right there. It's the tiniest little sliver. So now I want to go ahead and start to do some assembly here. And I just love that the die cuts the little paws separate from the backing so you can slide it over something. And what I'm going to do here is put some photo mounting tape on the lid and just cover that little tab there so the little bear stays right where he needs to stay. And then I'm putting a little tape behind the bear's head as well. And I just want to attach that first to my jar. And now I thought his paws needed to be glued down just a little bit, just to make sure that, you know, he stays in place. And I'm putting a little bit of glue there, and I'm just going to hold it for a second just to make sure that it's dry. And now I can go ahead and put glue all along the back of the jar. And now I want to attach my other bears, and I want them to look like they're looking around the jar. So I have a little bit of glue on the back of the jar. I'm sliding the first one up towards the top there, just one of his paws hanging over, and the other one to the right down towards the bottom, and again, just one of the paws hanging over. Now I'm going to put glue all on the back of those two little guys that I added, and remove the double stick tape to the backing of the tape to the top bear, and position that in my circle there. And is this just so cute? I mean, I just think they are so cute. So now I've got that all in place. I like to take a piece of scrap paper or a clean paper towel to pat things down and make sure they're positioned, because usually my hands are so dirty with ink and glue and everything else that it's a cleaner way to do it. So now I'm just going to take my little hearts. I wanted him holding one up the top of the jar there. Just going to place an acrylic block there to hold it down while I'm doing the others. This next heart, I did want to pop it up a little bit. So I'm just cutting my photo mounting tape into little small chunks so that I get a nice coverage there. But before I do that, I want to attach my Happy Holidays or your Happy Heart Day or whatever you want your saying to be here. Just going to attach that right in the center of the jar. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing from that heart. I'm going to position that right there on the corner of that label. So you can see that I have some nice dimension on this now. The jar lid is popped up, the bear on the top is popped up. So now I'm going to take my Wink of Stella pen, and this gives a beautiful shimmer, and I'm going to go right over the top of the two hearts there, and you'll see that it gives a beautiful sparkle to those hearts. And I'm deciding here where I wanted the bow. I liked both, so I decided to go at the bottom there, but either way I think would have been cute. Those are the little decisions that I still debate about even after I've done it. Like, should I put it at the top? I don't know. But anyway, I put it down there just because I thought it needed a little something towards the bottom. And now I have the inside portion. And I'm going to go ahead and attach a couple of hearts back here. Again, you know, the inside of the card is just as important as the outside. It's fun to decorate. I mean, I do a lot of times leave mine blank because I like to have them where I can use them for any kind of a card. But this one I thought would be cute to attach this little insert. So I'm going back over with my Wink of Stella pen, glitter pen, right over the top of those three hearts. Just again to give it a little bit more sparkle, because we love sparkle And that looks pretty good. And I'm just trying to adjust there so you can see better. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Nuvo adhesive and just place it around that. I did try to put a little dot of glue in each of those little scallops just so that it would stay in place. And then plenty of glue on the inside. Sometimes I use the glue instead of the tape because if I need to reposition or shift it a little bit, the glue just gives me a little bit more play time. You know, I can kind of go in and adjust it. You see me, I'm able to slide it around a little bit there just to get it in exactly where I wanted it. And you can see that looks pretty cute. So I decided the edges looked a little bit plain, so I'm taking my Picket Fence Distress ink and I'm coming with which is a white color, and I'm just coming around just to kind of soften those edges a little bit. I wanted it to look a little bit more whimsical. I thought those lines were a little harsh. And so I continued just adding a little bit of that shading around the edges and just soften things up. And I love this white Picket Fence ink. And when you want something just softened up a little bit or change the color of it, a lighter shade of something, I reach for this often. It'll just, give it a lighter hue. And sometimes that's all you need. So there you can see that it brings your eye right to the center and makes those cute little bears the focal point of the project. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at my website, pinkwhisperdesigns.com. Thanks for visiting. Have a great day. Bye.